Nick Littlehales is an international elite sports sleeping recovery coach. Is regarded as a leading industry expert with over 30 years experience in the world of sleep, sleeping habits and sleeping product design. Nick has over 16 years dedicated to elite athletes and organisations in world sport and is the founder of the unique R90 recovery technique. As a former aspiring professional golfer, international sales and marketing director of the global Slumberland Group and chairman of the UK Sleep Council, Nick has conducted many practical and clinical research projects into the varied sleeping habits adopted by the modern-day sleeper and athlete. Nick's unique approach, passion and proven approach, is endorsed by leading sports science professionals, managers and coaches in sports and business. To name but a few, Nick's experience includes working with the British cycling and paracycling teams, Real Madrid CS and Manchester City Football Club.
Hi everyone, and a big thank you to everyone that's listening today. Today is Sleep Focus, and we have the fabulous Nick Littlehales with us today to give us some expertise on how you can factor sleep into your day. I spoke to him briefly about what he does, and it's absolutely fascinating. For those of you that aren't aware of different ways where you can kind of like sneak some rest in, as I wasn't. It's really fascinating to listen to. Hi Nick, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Amy. Glad to join your listeners. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Thanks ever so much for taking the time out to speak to us today. I just touched base on what we were kind of speaking about when we spoke last, and I definitely think that people are going to benefit from it. So tell us a little bit about you, Nick. What's your passion story?
Literally, I was working within the sleep industry, working as a sales and marketing director for a company called Slumberland Beds. They were principally based up in Oldham, Manchester, but part of a large group throughout Europe and international licensees all over the world. So I very much as a leading brand. We were always looking at innovative things and sleep research. So I did a lot of work in that particular area on the clinical side and just looking at all the sleeping habits around the world and how people approached it. I also was part of a team that set up the first UK Sleep Council and was chairman for that for a while. So had a long period of my career inside of the sleep industry. And the one thing that always sort of frustrated me was that sleep, obviously, is important to us as humans, but the reality was we just took it for granted. We didn't really take too much notice about how we go about it. And I just thought, a bit of a midlife crisis maybe in my early 40s, sat at my desk in Oldham, that maybe the world of sports might have a different approach. A few things had gone on that would trigger off a particular connection, which led me to write to Manchester United, to Alex Ferguson, to ask the question as a local employee and a bed company. And literally, there was nothing. He came back and said there was nothing going on. But it sparked off a conversation with the physiotherapist, Dave Fever, at the time. He first asked me to sort of download everything I knew. And from that particular process, we started to look at mattresses and things like that could possibly help certain players. And then we also looked at, with all the information that I got, to download that into him and start to create some sleep awareness. And so that led to working with some of the players. That led to some of those players who worked with the England squad to start working with the England squad themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Just bear with me.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's all right. So that's I started to work with the England squad, Euro 2004, which was in Portugal, where I completely revamped the hotel for the England squad, changing all the products and things like that. and even taking products over there, which was one of the first sort of opportunities when I actually started to provide players in that particular instance with sleep kits for when they travel, so a bed in a bag, for instance. And I suppose more significantly, I started to work with British Cycling around 2009 when they were going on a particular strategic route to try and elevate cycling and things like that to another level. And Team Sky, a professional team, was also put together then. So I was working inside of there with their aggregation of marginal gains approach, which was looking at every single area to try and improve performance. So I was engaged on the sleep side. We did some number of fascinating things with that process. Like I say, I designed and created sleep kits for all the riders for their Grand Tours, like the Tour de France. And they went on they've won back-to-back Tour de France's, Bradley Wiggins, Chris Froome. They've really been very successful within their sport. And within British Cycling and the Paralympic cycling, we did all the same process for London 2012, which they really went on and smashed records again. And most recently at the Rio Games as well, we did exactly the same. So sleep really has been quite a roller coaster ride up until this point, but it's very much on everybody's agenda, and for all sorts of reasons, because of the problems of having poor sleep hygiene, the health and well-being red flags that are out there at the moment. So it's a really interesting time at this moment in time for sleep, and I probably never thought it would get to this particular point, but it's great that everybody's taking it more seriously. But the sort of trick is to almost forget about sleep, because it relates to something that we've always taken for granted and not a performance criteria, and think that the human being in this modern world needs to look at mental and physical recovery periods and how you approach it, using some of the techniques from our ancestors, raising your education and awareness, because we don't get any of it in our system, and just starting afresh with a better awareness and taking some steps forward, which can really sort of change your attitude and change your life. And that's where we are today, Amy.
Lovely, absolutely lovely. I'm pretty certain that a lot of the people that are listening today are people that don't always sleep so great, and are the type of people that, as was I, would wake up in the middle of the night and your head's spinning because you've got like a million things going on.
Yeah.
So then you start to, wake up in the morning, you'll grab some caffeine, you need to continue through the day, you haven't got a good night's sleep, you don't feel rested, so you're constantly borrowing energy from tomorrow. How would you help people with that?
I think what I've put together is, over the years of working with different people, I now work in all sorts of different areas. It's very much about the individual and their occupation. So although I'm working around elite athletes a lot, their occupation is sport. But they sleep on their own, or they sleep in their homes, on their own in hotels, or in their homes with their families. So it's very much about the individual. So all the techniques are focused on people rather than what they actually do. And the R90 technique, which is recovery in 90-minute cycles, we use 90-minute cycles rather than hours. We look at the 7 key sleep recovery indicators, which I believe, if you go into those particular areas and make little steps, awareness, raising your knowledge, maybe changing 1 or 2 little practical things, you can really start to make a real difference. So whereas people may be rushing around, pushing it very hard, 24/7 world, lots of tech, lots of information that's going on around you, is you look at that individual, you look at what they're trying to do. We're not trying to change what they're doing, but we change their approach to it. So one of the 7 factors is learning more about the circadian rhythms of the day, which is very, very important to us as human beings, and that's sun up and sundown process, and light and dark. There's the knowing your chronotype, whether you're a morning or a nighttime person, which is genetic and can have a real effect on how well you're going to recover every night. There's pre- and post-sleep routines, which have never been more important. There's thinking in cycles rather than hours. So a classic 8-hour period, which most people will be aware of, is actually 5 90-minute cycles and 7.5 hours. But you can look at really establishing just how much sleep you need by moving from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to even 1 cycle, and using the natural 2 other periods in the day, midday and early evening, where you can take a nap and you can take a short mental and physical recovery break, which is very much still how they operate in Spain. But a lot of my athletes use this. It's what's called a polyphasic approach rather than monophasic. And monophasic just simply means that you sleep just at night in one block. Whereas right up until the moment that the artificial light bulb was created, we always slept polyphasically, using shorter periods more often throughout any 24 hours. So it's very much dropping back to there. We also look at trying to get a better balance between mental and physical activity and mental and physical recovery, because we're pushing things too far. We also look at the products that we use to sleep with and on, and also the environments that you find yourself in to sleep. And the most important thing for everybody is that sleep, the way that you control the quality of it and what you get from it, the benefits, is all about what you do from the point of wake. Because your brain is triggered by so many things, functions, biological, physiological, hormones getting created at certain times. And all of that process that goes on every day is, if you're a little bit more aware of it, not anally sort of studied it like mad in a geek sense, but if you're just a little bit more aware of it, then everything that you do every 90 minutes of the day, getting little breaks, what you eat, how you hydrate, what you've been doing throughout the day against your chronotype, is all of that builds to what actually your brain is going to release for you when you go into a sleep state. So you can't sort of put it right just at the last minute before you go to bed. It's already predisposed to giving you what you're going to get. So it's very much about that process that's important. And, all the time I meet people who worry about sleep, but all they actually know about is you probably need about 8 hours, which they don't get. And they probably don't need to eat too late, close to whatever time they're going to bed, but they don't know what that is. So it's really random. So what happens is these little interventions in isolation. If you push too hard, you start knocking on the door of sleeping tablets or various other, more herbal interventions. You might start looking at overstimulating with caffeine, trying to push yourself through. And all of that is a real cocktail for a disaster. So anybody who really struggles, because that is the case of a lot of people today, and all they have to do is, it's all covered in a book that I've just got out called the R90 Technique. The book's called Sleep. But if you start afresh, re-educate yourself, get more aware of it, you can really start to make some progress and realize the things that you're doing right and know why that's happening, and lots of other things that are just a bit counterproductive. And then every day, every month, you can start to make little changes to those every time you get an opportunity, and it'll all aggregate up to a much better, a more sustainable level of recovery from the hours that you allocate to sleep.
Awesome. So earlier on, you mentioned something about AM, daytime, morning and evening chronotypes. Is that right? Or AM and PM chronotypes?
Yeah.
What would constitute as each?
Basically, there's a little genetic twist, which means within the circadian rhythms is that there's two hormones, melatonin and serotonin. Serotonin is your wake hormone. Melatonin is your relax and sleep hormone. And they were created, serotonin is created by blue light, daylight, and the melatonin is created by darkness. So in that balance, what happens is that the morning chronotype, when the sun rises and it gets exposed to daylight, moves much quicker to the point of serotonin and wake, whereas the PM chronotype, it's a slower process, about 1 to 2 hours. So what you'll notice as an individual is if you have to drag yourself out of bed, keep hitting the snooze button, if you had absolute control over everything that you did, what time would you get up? 8, 9, 10? When do you feel the most alert and reactive? Is it in the afternoon, in the early evening? Do you like to stay up later, into the 12, 1 o'clock area? And there's all these little triggers that people can actually identify with them. But a lot of people sort of camouflage them with their occupations or overstimulating or pushing through. And it's those sort of things that can be counterproductive. And it's like, because I'm a morning chronotype, so I want to get up, my time's 6:30, get up, get on with my day. All the mental tasks have to be done in the morning because I just smash them. In the afternoon, it takes me longer to do these tasks. So I try to do other types of tasks in the afternoons. And I'm aware that, during the summer months, I'd like to go to bed a little bit earlier than most because I'm getting up earlier. But everybody's out there enjoying the summer. So I would just slide in a 20 or 30-minute controlled recovery period, nap for everybody else, between 5 and 7 to raise my awareness, to raise my alertness, and then I can rock on longer. So these sort of little techniques, if you understand it, then if you're a PM chronotype and we all go to work at the same time, then be very conscious of all the morning chronotypes around you that are going to drive you around the twist. Because they're all sparky and want to go like mad and you're dragging yourself through. Be very conscious of overstimulating yourself to be as quick as those with caffeine and things like that, because it will be counterproductive. If you've got an office and your desk is over there on the darker side of the room and there are desks by the windows, then when you get an opportunity of a desk by the window, take it. Because in the first hours of you at work, you need that daylight to help you move along a little bit quicker. Or you might be able to get a daylight desk lamp to help you, or something even funkier like a human charger to put in your ears and put daylight straight in there. Once you start to understand it, the whole business of that slump between 1 and 3 is not because you're tired. It's not because it's a boring part of the day. It's not because you've just had lunch. It's because there is a natural clash of urge and need in the circadian process for humans, where it's perfectly natural for you to go into a small sleep state. And that's what's hitting it. And the same applies early evening. So you start to get a relationship with your chronotype. And so when somebody asks you to do something, and like if they ask me to do something in the morning, I say yes. If they ask me to do something in the afternoon, I ask them what exactly is it. Because if it doesn't fall into the bracket of me being able to cope with that type of task easy enough, then I would have to put certain things in place to enable me to do that. Increase my daylight exposure to get the serotonin up. Take a nap before I go in. Use light therapy to raise that up so that I'm not flagging. So it's something that becomes very personal, and you can work around things. And it's a bit like if you don't know your chronotype, if you're a nighttime person and somebody says, will you come and do this job? We're working night shifts. Well, you can say yes, because PM chronotypes like the night. If you're a morning chronotype, you say, to be honest, no, because it's going to kill me. I won't be able to give it 100%. It'll end up probably in me failing, and then I'll end up getting fired. So the best thing to do is let me look at something else. So it kind of, what it is it's sort of starting a little bit fresh and using this sort of different mindset to not restrict what you're doing, but, make it work for you and set yourself free and stop worrying about it.
Excellent. So if you're the type of person, say for instance, that kind of, if you're the type of person that kind of struggled to get to sleep in the evening, you mentioned earlier about, like things you can do to help wake yourself up and things you can do to help yourself fall into a sleep, like a wind up and a wind down process. How would you kind of advise people wind down if they're nighttime people, but they do have to get up for work at 6 o'clock in the morning or something? Yeah. What are the tips that you kind of give them? Because I know they're big, a lot of those.
Well, I know, there's loads of them. If you start to think that, the first things you do in the morning is the start of your day, and it's really, really a time in today's world and for the future that the things that you do in the first part of the day are really important. So it's called post-sleep routines. So, hydrating, breakfast, empty bowel and bladder, a little bit of a mental exercise, get plenty of daylight into the system, sort of as much as an unrushed way as possible, brings you into this very demanding world better. And then as you wander through the day, but things that are very good is that every 90 minutes, I get athletes to put a little alert on their smart devices to start with. So they just get a relationship with what 90 minutes feels like. And some tasks, it seems like 90 minutes just goes like very quickly, and with other tasks it seems longer. But once they've got a relationship with that, they can switch it off. So every time I sort of feel that I've been doing something for a period of time, like talking to you or doing a task or presenting at a conference, if I've done it for a period of time, I know I'm now wandering into an area where I need a little bit of a boost. I need to download information. So I'm back in the room. And that's just a quick break. So if you're always thinking, every 90 minutes throughout the day, best you can, is just try to get these distractions. If you've got 2-litre bottle of water on your desk because you want to keep hydrating, just put it back in the kitchen. Because every 90 minutes, go and get a glass of water. Or just go outside, or go and get something from the car, or go to the toilet. Anything just to keep little breaks going on will start to help as you get closer towards sleep. When you're getting close in that final sort of 90 minutes, an hour, you must really remember that you are a human being with a brain, and you've got to try and help it as much as possible. So you really need to start tech shutdown. You hear a lot of things about blue light. Blue light's very positive because it's daylight. But if we expose ourselves to too much of it during the day, we get out of sync. So it's not only shutting down information to allow the brain to file download, is also to protect yourself from the blue light, which is doing the serotonin. So you must move from warm to cool, because that's the sunset process. Not cold, but you need to be a little bit warmer than your bed and your bedroom. You need to be moving from light to dark. Amber light, red light, yellow light, candle light does not affect you, but artificial light and blue light does. So you want to be trying to move through that light spectrum towards dark. You can use yoga, you can use mind space stuff, meditation. You can even use light exercise if you've got a static bike, just rolling the pedals over. You can make sure that you're not underhydrated. If you need a little bit of a snack because you don't want to go to sleep hungry, then grab something. Allow yourself the opportunity to empty the bowel if necessary, if you feel like it, but also, more importantly, the bladder. Because you do not want to be waking up. If you go into a sleep state and you have 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, or 2 cycles in this case, and you wake up to go to the toilet, you're just breaking your patterns, and you're just disturbing your sleep patterns. If you're constantly thinking about stuff, you may not be conscious of it, but subconsciously it's going on. So tossing and turning, overheating, because there's things going on in your mind because your brain hasn't been given an opportunity through the day. That might drag you out of sleep. Stupid little things, some old school stuff. I was actually with somebody yesterday, and what they do is they put their house keys and car keys on the mat just inside the door. They know that when they leave the house, they will never go out of the door without checking that. So it's a place of total security. They will not leave the house without picking those keys up off the mat. It could be a basket. It could be on a side table. And what they do is we've got our to-do lists everywhere, all in the cloud on our devices and everything. Plans. It's just in that moment, the classic bit of a bit of paper and a pencil, and whatever's going on, even while you're watching the telly, whatever, and just allowing that something crops up about your life that you want to remember, or is on the list, or it's cropped up again so you haven't really put it away yet, is you just doodle these things onto a piece of paper. So you might be actually just drawing something, or you might be actually writing something in a nondescript way. So it's sort of coming out through the pencil onto a piece of paper. And it's so old school that you just put that piece of paper with the keys, because you know you won't walk out without it. So what you've done is just told your brain, it's all right. I know that cropped up again, but I've dealt with it again, and I've put it away over there, and I won't forget it at all. Now, probably, when you wake up in the morning and you pick your keys up and you pick that piece of paper up, you'll probably just chuck it away because you're in control. But there's all sorts of little tiny things that might be suitable for one person, not another. There's supplements that can really help. There's things like tart cherries, Cherry Active. They're not the ones we cook with. They're very tart, but they produce natural potassium and magnesium, which is great for physical physical recovery, but they also produce natural melatonin, which is a nice way to relax and chill out and even wander towards sleep. So those supplements are used quite a lot in sport. Banana tea, you need an organic banana, because you don't want any pesticides in the skin. You let it ripen, chop the ends off with the skin on, plonk it in boiling water for 10 minutes, and you get an infusion from the banana. The potassium and magnesium from the flesh, but there is more potassium and magnesium in the skin, so you get that out as well, rather than throwing it away. And the skin actually produces tryptophan, which is the amino acid that triggers serotonin. So banana tea can be a great way to get a little boost at lunchtime when you're flagging a bit against a chronotype. So you can actually sort of, once you've got a more defined process like the R90 program, cover off the 7 steps, make some little changes, get a much better awareness of what you're doing, then you can start to add little things in that will help you cope with certain things as they go on. And that's really how everybody should look at it, and stop thinking about 8 hours a day, because, most of my clients don't get anywhere near it. They have to sleep in a polyphasic way because the times of games and events, like the swimmers in Rio, they were up smashing the lengths at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then most of their heats and finals weren't till 9 or 10 o'clock at night because of media and global rights. So a lot of athletes have to have an approach of sleeping shorter there and much later at night because they've only just got back, putting in other periods. And that applies to all of us. Anybody tells me that they have no time for napping, I'll find it piece of cake. They're just doing something else which is less important. Switch your mindset.
Yeah, I was going to sort of say, a lot of people that perhaps, especially kind of like working mums, for instance, working single mums in particular that, have like busy jobs during the day, they rush home, pick up the kids, they get the kids to sleep. By the time they've done that, it's pretty much bedtime anyway. I suppose the things that you kind of like mentioned beforehand where, get up every kind of like 90 minutes, because it's the R90, is that right? The R90 program?
Yeah.
That's
right.
And that's in your, all explained in your sleep book, which you can get on Amazon at the moment, can't you? Is that right?
That's right. It's available for pre-order on Amazon, but it's also, its official launch is the 27th of October. So, as always, the statement is it's available in all good bookstores on and offline. The principle of the book, it's got a nice story about it. So lots of examples and case studies relative to everybody. It's been written for everybody, not elite athletes. The core of it is all about the R90 program. So there's a series of 7 chapters which uncover, what we were chatting about, circadian rhythms, chronotypes, and things like that. And at the end of each chapter, there's a simple section where it gives you all the little takeaways that you could start to adopt straight away. And it touches on family life, it touches on children, it touches on certain disorders, it touches on, an everyday case study and how we've resolved that so somebody can apply their own situation to it. And, I think you'll be quite surprised when you read it because it's very much about, taking away the myths, creating a different mindset about it, and really having a positive approach towards sleep, probably for the first time in your life. So I would say it's a good read, but there you go.
Yeah, I would agree. What I thought was interesting, because a lot of people won't necessarily appreciate that, it's possible to, or even have contemplated it. I certainly hadn't. When we spoke previously, you mentioned about you can actually start getting your children and incorporating this into your children to identify, obviously you identify what chronotype they are, and you can start implementing some of the tools into their day-to-day life. So as they grow, they naturally grow knowing kind of what they're doing. You will explain it loads better than me. Do you want to give that a go? Save me?
Yeah. Well, that generation are going to really struggle because they're totally immersed in this world. I'm old enough to have enjoyed the fact that I could actually do an international sales and marketing job without a phone. Which is just inconceivable, really, sat here now. But they're so immersed in it, they've got a different culture around them. And if if the kids are coming along in the near future, then the R90 program, sleep-spinning cycles, will really help you walk into that period and not get attacked by it as infants come into your life. The same point is the process of, as your children start to grow up, maybe you've got daylight lamps in their rooms, so they don't really know what's going on, but they're getting woken up by daylight because you've got dawn-wake simulators in there rather than just standard lamps. You've made sure that their room is in complete blackout, however you do that, so that they get that relationship with it. When you first start thinking about, asking them to do things, is show them that, if you're taking them swimming, even when they're very young, and they see you leaving your phone behind or putting it in a locker, and they always learn by example, like manners, like anything. If you do the right thing, they will follow it. Telling them to do it is another matter. And so if they see you doing that, so as going to the swimming bath is actually a tech break, because we're going to put it away and ignore it for a bit, because the reward is going swimming, riding a bike, going for a walk in the park, doing things, showing them that you can actually be without it for a short period of time. And then as they start moving into the latter years, you can spot their chronotype. So if you've got two children and you can see that one's morning, one's PM, quite clearly in their attitude, because the one can't put their shoes on really quickly in the morning, the other one's got them on and gone. So you can start to spot it. And so what's the point of asking that child to push them to do things in the evening or the morning when it's against their normal chronotype? And just be aware of it. And suddenly, if my parents had said to me, do your homework in the morning before you go to school, I'd have loved it. Telling me to do it last thing before I go to bed, forget it. I'm just not there. I'm going to struggle like mad. It takes me an hour to read a paragraph. I just don't want to do it. But my sister smashes it. So just, you can't use these things to sort of dictate what goes on, but you'll certainly be able to educate them. And as they go into primary school, they go into secondary school, they go on to university and colleges and things like that, and their first choice of a job, like we said, don't offer him shift work. It's going to be a nightmare. Mm-hmm. Think about that. And even, all of those things start to come through, and they become far more, they've got all the skill sets already implanted in them, so that as they start moving into those areas, they're much more equipped to deal with it. And, you and I know, Amy, that, this has only just started. Technology and 24/7 and the global planet, we're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. A common consultation for me is I have two young children. I work 60 hours a week, and I also do professional events for triathlon and Ironman. And you go, what? Where on earth do you find the time to be so committed to stuff like that? And I think, we're just going to keep going in that direction. Performance levels are always going to be put up. I mean, all the conversations we have is people communicate with us and they expect us to respond by return, whether it's an email, text, call, whatever it is. We're just very demanding on everybody. And so, if you just take these few steps, it's what the book's all about, is to give you some things to be able to cope with this world, and you can pass it on to your friends and relatives. And I do a lot of stuff within the corporate world now, because it's the same thing. It's just a collection of people with the same issues, to re-educate them, to take them on a different place, to make sure that, a lot of companies, Google have completely changed their approach to employees and workspace. And these little things like, where, look around the room and who's doing what, when, and why. Maybe if we do this, maybe if we do that, maybe somebody can come in at 10 o'clock and work till 7 because of their chronotype, rather than pushing them in for 9 and getting nothing out of them till 11. It's kind of, you can't really change everything overnight, but certainly, let's call it the sleep revolution. It's more to do with not actually What you're doing while you're asleep, because it's already gone, it's happening, is what you do from the point of wake onwards determines the quality or the non-quality. And if I do things throughout the day that I know, because I'm more aware, I know are going to reduce the quality of my sleep, then I don't worry about it, do I? I just go, I'm doing this now because I want to do this now, but it's not going to allow me to sleep well tonight, so get over it. Maybe we can put it right the next day, or get back on track another day. So the awareness sometimes is not about stopping you doing something. So one little glass of wine will help you relax, put you in a different mind space maybe. It's a nice little reward at the end of the day. Fine. But 3 and 4, no. It's going to take you to a point where you're going into a place where you're going to affect the quality of your sleep. So if I have another glass of wine, because I'm just loving what we're doing, then fine. But it's also saying to me, you're going to struggle tonight, so don't worry about it. Maybe you could do some other things. Stay up a little bit later. Do more pre-sleep stuff. Make sure that you've hydrated again. Do some mind space stuff. Chill out and go to bed at 2 o'clock. Allow it all to get through your system better. Go to bed at 2. Just do 3 cycles up at 6:30. Get on with your day, because you'll get a better quality from a shorter period than if you try and push it with the wrong things going on. And whether I've explained that well enough, but it's sort of, trying to push this and trying to do it without knowledge, it's much better if you take it away. And a lot of my athletes will not sleep the night before events or after them because they're off the charts. There's no point trying to do it because it's just really counterproductive. Do other things that are positive about mental and physical recovery. Go out and smash it, and let's get on with it when we get back. So it's that sort of attitude towards the confidence about it. That's all I mean.
Educational stuff, definitely, absolutely. Wow, thanks ever so much for talking to us today, Nick. Really, really appreciate it, as I'm sure everyone else does. But just before we finish up, I just wanted to make the listeners aware that you have a free gift that you can offer them. Do you want to tell them about what the free gift is?
Yeah, there's all the information about what I do is held on a website called sportsleepcoach.com. And there are blog posts. We're on all social media giving away free content all the time. And on there is a little free gift, which is a free sleep profiler. So they just click on it. It'll take them through a series of questions, and they'll get an assessment, which is not something, automated. We get the answer to the questions. We have a quick look at it, and we give you a profile result. And that is free, and it's a great first step to get filing. You've also got a code, Amy, NUTRI10. NUTRI 10, which gives all your listeners an opportunity on the website. If they plonk it into the shopping cart, that will give them a discount for anything they wanted to order. We do consultancy services, which is on an international basis because it's all done virtually. But when it comes to the products that are on the website, then some of those are a little bit restrictive to ship, depending on where people are. But we'll always do our best to try and activate that. And, everything's in the book. Get yourself one.
Get yourself one, absolutely. It sounds awesome. Thanks ever so much. All the information on how to get hold of Nick and myself will be, as always, included on the email that you received this audio. And if anyone wants to get in touch, all the information is there. Once again, thank you so much for listening, everybody, and a big, big, big thanks to Nick for taking the time out to educate us on all things about sleep today. Thanks ever so much, Nick.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.